The LG Procast, the podcast, is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views or opinions expressed by the podcast hosts and guests do not necessarily reflect the official position of LG. For the latest and most accurate information about LG products, please consult relevant product manuals and related documentation. The information provided in this podcast episode is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we make no representation or warranties of any kind, express or implied, about the completeness, accuracy, reliability, or suitability of the information for any specific application in the following discussion. LG and those posting or otherwise providing information, content, or material are not responsible or liable for any consequences relating directly or indirectly to any action or inaction you take based on the information, content, or other material on the podcast.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the LG Procast. I'm your host, Terry Frisenda, joined today with Mr. Philip Craig Baum. And who we got with us today, Philip?
Hey guys, good to see you. We've got a couple of cool guests with us, and a lot of you probably already know them if you've ever called into the LG tech support line. So today, if you're watching on video, you get to put a face with a name. But we've got Mr. Philip Crawford and Rene Garcia. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about Rene, go first. Tell us a little bit about what you do down there in Texas, and I'm assuming you're in Texas. And
Yeah,
let's go from there.
I do tier 3 tech support with Philip. Also, help assist some of the tier 2 people in tier 1 if they have any questions and issues, here at the office, and also help any of the technicians out in the field that need assistance. Also looking at data, analyzing data, and like that, helping out some of the reps that send data in for analysis.
Nice. Mr. Crawford?
So I'm the supervisor for our department. So I analyze data like Rene said, and answer phone calls when the tier 2 team can't figure out what's going on. They reach out to me or Rene, and then we also have the emails and all the things that go in with being the tech support. And it's just a busy time for everybody here in Texas.
I bet it is. I bet it is in the summer. I know, every once in a while you guys get inundated with calls. So I appreciate you taking some time to be with us today. We won't take up too much of your time, but we do appreciate you getting on here. Terry, you were saying it before we jumped on here, but we had this episode a while back about the 5-wire, how the wiring has changed with the new R32 product. And since then, I've heard a lot from contractors in the field, salespeople, what have you, about the multi-zone systems and the difference in how they set those up now. In the past, every unit would just get a wire from the condenser to the indoor unit and really didn't have any addressing. Now that we're using communication wire with just an A and a B line, you have to go through an auto addressing or a manual addressing procedure to set that up. So wanted to have you guys come on and just kind of talk through what that process looks like, some of the challenges that you've found from the field, and just some best practices. So whichever one of you guys want to kick it off and start there, just tell me what I need to know.
So on the A and B communication wires on the multi systems, we have found that the straight line daisy chain does work better than the starburst communication setup. The starburst does work, but it can be finicky. Sometimes you have to auto address it 2 or 3 times. Sometimes you have to reverse polarity, and it does work. So just think of one pair of wires leaving the condenser going to the first indoor unit, from the first to the second, from the second to the third, and so on, and ending at the last indoor unit. So it's a straight line daisy chain, which does work better than the starburst. Both styles do work, but the starburst is more finicky.
Philip, let me jump in here real quick. For those that are probably wondering or maybe wondering and don't want to ask the question because they think, oh, that might not be a smart question, explain the difference between, well, I know what daisy chain is, but tell them what a starburst wiring diagram is.
So, from the condenser, if you have 4 indoor units, you have 4 AB communication wires coming to the condenser. So all of them gather at the condenser. So it looks like a starburst just going out towards the indoor units. Um, and then the straight line daisy chain, instead of having 8 connections at the condenser, you only have 2 connections at the condenser for your straight line daisy chain.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So if starburst is more difficult, certainly uses more material and more wire, seems like a straight line daisy chain would be your preferred method.
Yes.
Podcast Philip and I are familiar with, the calls because we still are taking those calls from guys. So tell us what you're experiencing from the field in reference to calls about addressing via manually or auto addressing these systems. What's going on out there?
Go ahead, Rennie.
Okay, I've seen sometimes where, of course, they're not reading instructions and they're addressing them improperly. So when they're going straight to the outdoor unit, like on the multi-F, they're actually addressing the indoor units as 1A, 1B, and so on instead of 0A and 0B. So I've had to correct that before. That's one of the issues. Now, some of the other issues is they're still sending the 14.3 or 14.4 wire. The suppliers are, or sometimes send that wire out with these newer units, and they're trying to figure out how to wire it up. Like, you have the wrong wire in the first place. So seeing that also, and then there's sometimes where they've been given the wrong controllers. So they have like a simple stat or something like that where they cannot enter that piping address.
Maybe you can just pause there for 2 seconds. Expound on that controller issue. I know what you're talking about, but in the past, every LG controller has worked with LG systems. Right now, with some of our multi-zones, we're having some constrictions on that. So what should guys be doing and what should they not be using?
Like Philip's saying, the CRC does work, but first you have to have them addressed first, or probably do the auto addressing instead of the manual, and then you could get it to work that way. But that's the main. And sometimes I have seen sometimes where they actually have the wrong, or they think any handheld remote will work, and there's only 2 types of handheld remotes that work. So sometimes I had to get the part number of the remote to make sure they're using the correct remote, because they're saying, I set the address, but I don't hear any chime or anything. Yeah, so it's like, okay, let's see what remote you were using, and of course they have the wrong one.
Gotcha. So
Was it a remote that was shipped with that indoor unit, and they just
On that part, I'm not sure, because I think the one it was like they were installing multiple units, so I think they just had the wrong remote. It wasn't the remote that actually came with that unit.
just grab one and go. It'll work.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And the thing is, the options still came up when they pushed those buttons, but it didn't do anything, didn't respond.
Gentlemen, once it's addressed and set up, I mean, that's pretty much a one-time event, as long as nothing changes in the system, nobody adds ahead or changes anything, they shouldn't have to ever readdress that unit, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
good? So it's a startup new install issue on one and done. One and done.
Right.
And Rene, I think you said something about the CRC too, because I know a lot of guys really like that controller, and I do too. It's a great controller.
Me as well.
So make sure that I heard you right. If they set it up and they get the auto addressing done, either with no controller attached or using the standard 3 controller, they can, once everything is set up, they can then change the controller over to the CRC2 and life will be fine after that, right?
They should be able to control it. I've seen some cases where they weren't working properly, and then of course we put a new CRC and now it's working. Well, what was the software on that one? So that's another thing we have seen sometimes when they do it manually and they're addressing them, they're giving the wrong address to the unit. So we've seen where they give it the wrong address, and of course it's almost like cross-wiring the old style unit.
Yeah.
So we have seen that before also. So sometimes it seems like the auto addressing is a better method, because the unit figures out what's connected to it instead of them accidentally putting the wrong address.
Well, that would be similar to how U.S. systems operate in our communicating systems. They literally go and find what's connected and identify. So probably most contractors would prefer that method as well.
Can you very briefly give us a tutorial, as though we've never read the directions, on what we need to do to address a system? Can you just walk through the steps for us?
With a handheld remote or with a
Well,
wired controller?
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's start with a wired controller.
Okay. So with the wired controller, of course, you have to use a standard 3 controller, which, like I said, is a Prem TB-B11 or Prem TB101. And you need to go into installer settings. And to get to your installer settings, you have to know the software version. And actually, if you look at the screen, when you go to your menu on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you're going to see some little numbers on there. And that's basically the software version, the 4 numbers that are there. You might see a letter there also, some decimal points. Main thing you need to worry about are those 4 numbers. That's your password to get into your installer settings. Once you get to your installer settings, first you go to the menu, go to your settings. Once you're at your settings, you press it on the up arrow for 3 seconds. That gets you to your installer settings where it prompts the password. Once you get there, it's going to have all the different settings. You're going to scroll. Usually it's closer to the bottom where it says IDU pipe setting or pipe address setting. I'm sorry. And that's what you're going to be changing. And that's where you have to know what port that unit is connected to. So if it goes directly to the outdoor unit, you have no branch box. It's going to, the first digit's going to be a 0. And then if it's connected to port A, it would be 0A. And then B, C, D, so on and so forth. They don't, on these residential units, you can skip ports. You can start at C and D, doesn't matter, but you need to make sure you address it properly. Once that's done on all the indoor units, then you go to the outdoor unit. At the outdoor unit, you would press and hold the red button for 3 seconds. And then 88 should show up. After 88 shows up, about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, you'll see however many indoor units are in there. So it might say 3D, 2D, 1D, however many. It's going to flash that for about 40 seconds. After that, it goes back to 88. And then 88 is going to show up there for about another minute or so. Then it's going to switch back to the number of indoor units. And that's going to stay displayed for about 5.5 to 6 minutes. And you just leave it alone. Don't touch anything until the screen goes blank. Once the screen goes blank, you can run everything. I always suggest running one indoor unit, the indoor units one at a time to make sure that the correct unit is cooling. And then run them all to make sure everything works.
So what I'm hearing is be patient.
Yes. And if you're doing the auto address, you have to be even more patient because it's going to run for 20 or 25 minutes. And
you guys remember back to that 5-hour episode, we talked about, the baud rate, the communication rate between indoor and outdoor. That's one of the reasons we went to 5-wire, so that we could speed up this communication process with a dedicated A and B circuit. But patience, we jokingly laugh. What's the longest time in the world, right? The longest time in the world is the 5-minute time to a compressor, right? So, we got a new longest time in the world, and it's the communication cycle for auto addressing.
yes.
Cool. So if they want to utilize the auto address function instead of the manual address, one, can you tell us how it works? Like what's actually happening in the system? And then additionally, like what is the process step by step, like you just kind of did for us?
For auto address?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So basically what auto address is going to do, it's going to run the indoor units. Of course, it's going to run the condenser, and it's going to open up and close the expansion valves, and it's going to figure out which indoor unit is getting cold. So it's going to kind of do it individually. It's going to open one expansion valve. Okay, this unit's getting cold, so this one has to be on this port. But it kind of goes back and forth. So I guess it's just trying to make sure that it knows which one's connected to port A, which one's connected to port B. Because I've heard the text on the phone. Okay, this line's frosting up. Okay, now this one's frosting up. Okay, this one's frosting up again. So it seems like it's, just double checking to make sure it sees everything correctly. And then the same thing after, and it's going to flash 88 for that whole time that it's doing that. Once it gets close to the end where it's figuring it out and registering the information, it also flashes the total number of indoor units, and it'll flash that or just display that for about 5.5 minutes to 6 minutes, and then it'll go blank also, and then you're pretty much done.
Ooh.
And there on that one though, there is for the auto addressing, it has to be warm enough inside. If it's cold inside, it's not gonna it can't figure out which indoor unit's getting cold. It's recommended to do the manual
So
instead of
it
the
does
auto.
it in cooling mode only.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's good to know going into the winter months here that's coming up.
Right. Yes.
One thing to remember, the difference between auto address and manual address is the red button is manual address. The X button, the far right button, is auto address. Don't get those two mixed up.
Yeah, that's important. That's real important.
Yeah.
Real quick before we get too far into a different topic, I want to hit the multi F max and the branch boxes in the addressing, because there's a little bit that's not necessarily intuitive. Because I know you first, especially if you have two branch boxes, you have a 0 and a 1, not a 1 and a 2. But then I understand that the addressing doesn't necessarily match that. So I've got some confusion on that. Maybe you can just talk us through how that works.
So the addressing on the BD boxes, on the R32 BD boxes, there's two rotary dials. And the right rotary dial is the address of the box. And LG always starts at 0 for the address. And then as you increase in number, you go up on the right rotary dial. So since there's only two BD boxes allowed on one multi-F max, the right rotary dial is going to be 0 for the first box and 1 for the second box. And the piping address, if you have to manually pipe the first box, the indoor units would start with a 1. The second box, the indoor units would start with a 2.
That I know has thrown a couple of guys off. They're expecting the indoor units to start with 0 to match the 0 BD box. So guys, just remember that the BD box is 0 and 1, but then when you get to naming the indoor units, it's 1 and 2, or addressing the indoor units, I should say. So
Yes.
guys, I've kind of gotten through all the questions that I wanted to know. Is there anything else that you guys have run into or heard from the field feedback that you want to make sure that we convey to everybody while we've got you here?
So we have had people call in with about the 228 error code. The 228 error code means the Freon leak detection device is not working correctly. And so we've had people calling in to find out, can they bypass the 228? Can you get around it? And we've tested that here in our lab, and no, you cannot get around it. And so I would recommend keeping the noisemaker circuit board, not the Freon leak detection device, but the noisemaker circuit board is the same circuit board, whether it's a wall mount, ducted unit, ceiling cassette, that's the same circuit board. But yeah, there's no bypassing that error code.
Yeah, that's good to know. But in this case, I think that's one that we've communicated to distribution that, hey, we need to have some of these readily available, especially if there is a leak during install and it sets off and it trips the leak sensor. They're going to need to replace it before they can get everything up and going. Anything else that you guys, I know we're kind of running out of time, so just want to give you one last chance to chime in if you want to say anything else.
Hey, on the resetting the 228 code using FN11 at the outdoor unit, we found sometimes if they press the buttons too long, it'll go to something else like EN or something else comes up instead of the FN. So they have to basically press that button fast, press it and let it go. And you can usually get to your FN11 a lot easier. I've just found that the past few times I've talked to people. So yes, just don't keep your finger on that button for too long when you're trying to get to FN11, because it will take you somewhere else. It doesn't bother anything or anything. It just makes it a little bit of a pain. So yeah, just press the button real quick and it should get you there where you need to go.
Good stuff.
And car fumes, paint fumes, things like that can set off the Freon leak detection alarm. So be wary of where you're going to set up your equipment.
Interesting. So in a garage, that is something to keep consideration. I know a lot of guys like to put a little wall mount unit in the garage. So
So
Yep.
the 4-wire indoor units do not have Freon leak detection built in, but the 5-wire do. So there is a difference between the two.
Yeah, that's important to know. And just on a side note, the 4-wire units that we still have are the standard efficiency, our Phase 17 SEER model, and then the ArtCool Deluxe and the ArtCool Premier.
Basically 1-to-1. So we're asking now, you can't really connect a multi-zone indoor to a garage app anymore.
Yeah, it's potentially going to have those fumes in there.
I certainly learned a lot. And I know we've been back and forth on this, and we wanted to make sure it was an important topic for podcast Philip and I. So we wanted to make sure that we got service Philip on here and service Rene on here and talked about it.
There's a lot more that we could unpack with you guys, and I think we probably should have you back on for another episode or 5 and just talk through some different things that you guys experience and get that word out, because hopefully if we can educate, then guys can avoid the problems that you're seeing on a regular basis. But gentlemen, thank you. We appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on here, your knowledge, your willingness to help our team and our technicians and our customers all the time. So just a heartfelt thank you to you guys, and appreciate you joining us. To everybody out there listening, we appreciate you spending your time with us today, and we will see you next time on the LG Procast. Bye-bye.
See you guys.